I'll be reading from John 1, verse 43 through 49. That's John 1, verses 43 through 49. The next day he purposed to go forth into Galilee, and he found Philip, and Jesus said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, of the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses and the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And Nathanael said to him, "Can any good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him, and he said to him, "Behold an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no guile." Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered and said to him, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered him and said, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel."
Boy, good morning. I hope it's a good morning for you. I know it is for me. Good to see everybody here this morning. We were a little bit loud. Philip turned me down. Boy, it's bad enough already, isn't it? I was looking at the temperature as we came into here, and it was 72, and I look at it now, and it's 74. So if it gets up further than that, it's going to be invitation, and we're going home. But nobody better do that on purpose, okay? Because you need to go forward if you do. But thank you, Southern, for reading the scripture. It's tough when your dad's a minister and he forgets to get somebody, and then you have to do it last minute, but I appreciate Southern being there. In the eyes of many, Christianity sometimes may not be that admirable. If you think about those people maybe out in Durant or those out there that know about Christianity, but they're not Christians or they're not faithful, and they look at us with a little bit different view, don't they? And they might think that Christianity is not that admirable, especially if Christians aren't living like Christians should. So some see Jesus in a different way than we do. I want to show you this slide here. You might know someone who sees Jesus in one of these different lights. Those maybe in different countries just exalt the tomb, and that may be all that they see in Christ. There in Tokyo, you see there the Santa Claus on the cross. That's actually, is that a confusion? Yeah. I mean, you think about the way different people see Jesus, that's actually what they thought about Jesus. And then here Newsweek, a few years ago said, "Forget the church and follow Jesus," not understanding that Jesus or the church is the bride of Christ and then purchased by his blood. Or maybe you've seen the bumper sticker, "Real men love Jesus," or the fish sign, right? You've seen that. Or maybe someone has a necklace that they wear. But when non-Christians see Christians, sometimes they see someone who has just memorized this bunch of religious, awkward jargon of words, and just, that's it. And they might say that about you. You've noticed we've kind of been talking about that lately. Something that this kind of the series in my mind here. But there are those who claim to follow Jesus, but don't sound like it or don't live like it. And I know I don't want to be that person. And I know you don't want to be that person. So the more that we talk about Jesus, the more that we open his word, the more we're going to want to live like Jesus. When I read the scriptures and understand how different people saw Christ, they have a different way to tell the story. You might tell it differently than someone else. John told it differently than Matthew. How did Thomas see Jesus? Or you look further on in John 11, you might think about how Lazarus or Mary, they knew Jesus one-on-one, how they saw Christ. And, well, as we go through this in John chapter 1, Philip was impressed when he met Jesus. You understand, Philip was impressed, but Nathanael, you could almost say Nathanael wasn't, right? And that's what I want to show is the difference here. Here is Philip, and he's very impressed. And it's funny how, to me, in the text in John 1 that Southern just read, funny how it says Jesus found Philip. And what did Philip tell Nathanael? we have found Jesus. He almost should have said, Jesus found us, Nathanael. Well, that's just an interesting thing, but when Philip met Jesus in John 1, he found Nathanael, and he said it this way, we have found him of whom Moses, you think about how he said this. You know, I remember having a teacher in high school that taught Oklahoma history, and I was telling James about her not long ago, and she had this monotone way of reading history that was horrible, okay? And it was just unbearable to sit in the class. And she would just read through the material with a monotone voice. Now I want you to think about it. We read it like this. Think about if Philip said it this way. We have found him, of whom Moses and the law and the prophets wrote. You think that's how he said it? You think about what he's saying and what he's announcing. This is the long-awaited Messiah. How would you say this statement? You're going over to tell Nathanael, how would you say this statement? I think it was, we have found the Messiah. The long-awaited, the one that was prophesied about, of whom Moses and the law and the prophets wrote about, the son of Joseph, the Son of God. We have found him. And what does Nathanael say? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? You ever run into people like that? To give Nathanael credit, he was saying, Philip, I was just thinking about this question about what could really spring up out of Nazareth. I mean, what could really come out of Nazareth? It's an insignificant little city. It's not really a reputation of anything, and so maybe, and we know that the Pharisees kind of looked down on Nazareth, and so if you're from Nazareth, you're kind of considered lowly, esteemed at that time. And here, Nathanael is kind of just saying, what good can come out of Nazareth? The pulpit commentary said it's not just bad men who have prejudices about Jesus Christ, it's also good men. Listen, let's get right into the application of this, because I love this story. Can anything good come out of this church? And there's a reason I'm asking this. I mean, Wayne is positive, Jared's positive, we've got all these people right now who are positive, we're saying positive statements over and over and over. Can anything good really come out of this? I mean, can anything good come out of the youth? I mean, look at the youth over there pretending like they're taking notes. I mean, they got their Bibles out. Can anything good really come out of that? Do you know anybody like that? Can anything good come out of this merge? Can anything good come out of the new building? Can anything good come out of a fellowship meal together? I actually have heard, not here, but I heard someone say, can anything good come out of a VBS? Can anything good come out of hosting families in your home? Can anything good come out of Bible class? Brethren, I am fully aware that we face cynical and skeptical people a lot in our lives. You know that. Maybe you have a job that just welcomes people to be, the critic. And we face people like that all the time, and we can't run away from it. I was born in a little town called Rock Springs, Wyoming. And then we moved a lot because Dad was in the oil field. We moved after that to a little town called Hilton, Oklahoma. I consider Hilton, Oklahoma, home. We moved so much, it's a struggle, okay? But Hilton is where I grew up. Rock Springs is where I was born. Well, there's a little bit of confusion sometimes in Bethlehem and Nazareth, right? Well, I'm born way up in Wyoming, and then we moved to this little town of Hilton. Listen, Hilton is so small, never mind, somebody might be from Hilton, I'm not going to say that. It's a small town, not much happening there, and you're not on your way anywhere if you go to Hilton. Well, Jesus grew up in Nazareth, and he was born where? In Bethlehem. And we get those confused at times, but Bethlehem was prophesied in Micah chapter 5 and verse 2. It talked about Bethlehem. So we understand, well, here's a prophecy about Bethlehem, and here's the fulfillment in Matthew. And we see here in Micah 5:2, it says, "But as for you, Bethlehem, too little to be among the clans of Judah, for one will go forth for me to be a ruler in Israel." That's the prophecy about Bethlehem. But what about Nazareth? I look through the scriptures in the Old Testament and I don't see very many prophecies about Jesus coming from Nazareth, but I want to show you something. And as I study this, it's so powerful as we go through this. There's this word netzer. I want to show you this word. It's a Hebrew word for the branch or a shoot. And this is actually a sycamore stump from outside in our backyard. Netzer is a word for this branch or the shoot that comes off of a stump. And look at this passage in Isaiah. "Then a shoot will spring from the root of Jesse, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit, and the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him." This is kind of like the word netzer is like the hope, the shoot, the growth off of the side there, off of a Nazareth that's kind of been cut off, that's a stump, but this shoot is going to come off of there. And so this is a little sprout. It's not much value. The tree's been cut down, okay? Guess what the word for Nazareth is? Netzer. Maybe you didn't know that. Did he also go forth as a branch, as a shoot? He sure did. He came forth from Nazareth. He came as a carpenter. He came from Joseph and Mary. Nathanael said, "What good can come out of Netzer?" It's powerful. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, prophesied in Micah chapter 5. He was crucified and raised again in Jerusalem. And we look at all this, and I was looking at a map, and it's showing where all this is happening. And I'm thinking, he was called a Nazarene like 19 times in the New Testament. That's the most common usage of calling Jesus from somewhere. He was a Nazarene, Nazareth, and it's where the angel came from to Mary and to Joseph. But Nathanael asks Philip, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Well, Jesus didn't come from a royal city. He came from Nazareth, and this crown of thorns was on his head. How would you respond to that question? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? The number of people in this room who are inviting others to activities, inviting people to worship, it's completely astounding. I'm amazed. Every Sunday I talk to somebody, and Lane has too. Some of you are inviting all kinds of people to come and take part in worship, to join us in meals, to join us in Bible studies, and our college and young professionals they're outdoing us, and they're busy, and there's just so many good things happening. And so if someone says, "Well, can anything good come out of this?" Our Bible classes are full, brothers and sisters. Those classrooms are too small. And somebody says, "Can anything good come out of this?" Lane met someone last week who doesn't worship here but was skeptical about what's going on and was actually trying to make derogatory comments about what's happening here. And I met one a few weeks ago, never worshiped here, but said, "I hear y'all are having lots of trouble trying to worship in that gym." No, we're not. And what do you say? I'm one of those, and Lane knows me, I like to react a little too quick sometimes instead of slow down and be patient and act. What is the response to someone who's trying to be so negative about what's going on? And there's 3 words: come and see, brothers and sisters. That's it. And I look at this text and I'm like, this is huge, because for years I've wondered, how do you respond to cynical people? Right here. Come and see. There's a retreat next month at Pettyjohn Springs. We're bringing in this speaker. He's awesome. I love him. And there's going to be bunks, but there's going to be singing. There's going to be food, the greatest food you can imagine. The singing is going to be awesome. We're going to gather together at the end of next month, the last weekend at Pettyjohn Springs. We're going to have a speaker. His name is Buster. He's amazing. And what's your first reaction? Well, I know there's some people physically who can't make it or can't attend. But if that's not a hindrance to you, what's your first reaction? Somebody might say, well, you don't know. I don't know. Is that really, can anything good for my life? The topic is full of grace and truth, brothers and sisters. Can anything good happen out of that? Brethren, there is not a test better than personal experience. And that's what is being said here. Come and see. That's what Philip is saying. There's not a test better than if you want to see Jesus, he's saying you need to not just stick around and stay in your house. You need to come and see. You need to get out of your comfort zone, and you need to come and see what's going on with Christ, the Savior, the Messiah. So here's a few points for you to consider. And some of these surprised me, and then we'll come to a close. I think it's 75 now. After Jesus finds Philip, Philip finds Nathanael. Did you notice that? You wouldn't think this is a really big point. But the point is after you found Jesus, who did you find after that? After someone showed you the gospel, showed you the truth, who are you finding after that? And who am I? Jesus finds Philip, and then Philip finds Nathanael, and then Nathanael's response is kind of less than impressed. Who are we after right now? If you could write down right now a piece of paper and say, here are the 5 individuals that I want to share Jesus with right now, could you name them off? This is huge. It's the go and tell. It's the go out, and they might respond, kind of at first like Nathanael did, or be skeptical, or they might respond like the Ethiopian did, and he says, "Stop the chariot! Stop the chariot! Here's water. What hinders me from being baptized?" There in Acts 8. Stop the chariot now. They might respond that way. I don't know. Are you passing it on to someone else? But also, think about this. Is this, and this is really, this for me first, okay? Is this what matters most to us right now? Boy, after Jesus finds Philip, Philip finds Nathanael. I want to say a few words more about come and see. We meet people where they are. And we're trying to show them, come and see the Messiah, but if we're not being Christ to others, it makes it difficult. Last week, some of you know I like old cars. And I have an old car, and it's a piece of junk in a way, but something my dad and I have slowly worked on, okay? And if you see me going through town, you might want to go way around because something might happen. We've had a lot of trouble with it. I hadn't had it out in a long time, and I took Tucker, the 14-year-old. We're going out, and I said, let's go out in the old car. Try it out. We haven't had it out in a long time, several months. And we're going along the road and having a great old time, and I started complimenting the car. I said, man, it's doing pretty good. And we get down the road, and guess what happens? The steering wheel comes off. I've never had anything like that happen in my life. And my heart started pumping like you would not believe. And I'm scared to death because we're headed straight for the ditch. And I look over at Tucker, and he's grinning going, he doesn't realize how scared I was. This was just 4 days ago. And we're headed straight for the ditch, and I'm trying to get this back on. And then finally got it back on, and we got home safely. And I was telling my wife about it. You think Tucker would want to ride with me again? Not anytime soon. But brethren, it's been a year or two ago, I actually heard someone say, I don't go to worship every Sunday, but if you want to go, I'm sure that you will enjoy it. Brethren, the steering wheel's off. I can't take anybody anywhere if my steering wheel's off. If I'm justifying and excusing something about either Bible class or things like that, do you think we're going to get people to come in the doors and come and see if we're not being who we need to be? So we understand come and see. I remember the fellow in Wilburton one time, he said a prayer at the end of worship, and he said, let us meet back at the next appointed time, and he didn't come back on Sunday nights. If we're not who we need to be, then we can't bring others to come and see. It makes it really difficult. Thirdly, some will, some won't. Philip says, here's the long-awaited Messiah. How much bigger does that get? And Nathanael says, kind of has a doubtful response. I guess you call it. People have questions. We need to know right now. People are going to have questions, and we should still hold on to them and show them. Maybe they doubt the numbers. Maybe they doubt the information. Maybe they have misinformation. Maybe they have problems with the flesh. Maybe they have problems that this book limits their appetites. Maybe they have seen unchristian people or unchristian doctrines taught by false teaching. We have to understand more about who we're reaching out to. But the point is that Jesus didn't give up on Nathanael because Nathanael dissed where he was raised. He needed Nathanael, and he needs you. I think about the despondency that Jesus faced. We were just singing a song about the garden. I was thinking about the despondency that Jesus faced in the garden. When he says those words, my soul is deeply grieved, even to the point of what? Death. Keep watch for me. Watch and pray. And what was their response? What did they do? Think about what Jesus faced all the time. I think, well, you know what? Some will and some won't. I want to close with what Jesus told Nathanael. Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him. Go back to the text in John 1. Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him in verse 47 and said, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. You could summarize that statement to 3 words. I know you. Does Jesus know you? If we summarize that phrase, here, behold, here's an Israelite who has no guile, there's no impure motives in him. I mean, imagine that being you, and Jesus points you out and says, look at that person right there. Look at him or her. Behold, that person. There's no ill motive in that person. There's no desire to do anything harmful or bad. Jesus knows us. And look at the response in the text. In verse 48 from Nathanael, what does he ask? How do you know me? And Jesus tells him about under the fig tree. Before Philip called you when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Notice the kind of Savior we serve. And then Nathanael says, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Flip over to John 2 for a minute. I want to show you another passage in John 2:24. But Jesus, on his part, was not entrusting himself to them, for he knew all men. And because he did not need anyone to bear witness concerning man, listen to this, for he himself knew what was in man. You know what? It's going to scare some people in here that Jesus knows you right now. If you're not a child of God, Jesus knows it. If you will not obey the gospel, Jesus knows it. On the flip side, if you have obeyed the gospel and you're faithful to him right now, guess what? Jesus knows it. If you're not living right and you're living in sin And you're sitting there thinking to yourself this morning, I've got to get rid of this on the fence business. I've got to either be hot or I've got to be cold, because I know what Jesus said about that in Revelation. Maybe you're sitting there thinking to yourself, can he really see through this metal roof in this building? Can he really see me right now and who I am? I want to tell you, please, brethren, he can right now. He knows your heart. He knows if you're right or if you're not right with God. And also, he knows if you need prayer. And if you need prayer this morning, you can come to him. We get a mistaken idea that the invitation is for the preachers. It's not for the preachers. It's not for the elders. You're coming to Jesus Christ. If someone needs to come to Christ, to open their heart, to pour out their life and say, I'm broken, I'm at the bottom, I need help, I need to obey the gospel, I don't want to wait any longer, you can do it this morning as we stand and sing. James.